Thank you. Welcome back, everybody, to our final session of the afternoon. This first day has been so great with all of the presentations and all the great panels that we've had. And before I introduce our last session, I did want to again thank all of our board members and all of our investors and also all of the sponsors for this conference. Without all of you, it wouldn't be nearly as nice and it wouldn't be nearly as impactful or great event that it's been. So thank you so much for all of your support and participation. So to wrap up today, the final sessions, we're going to have a policy and an economic development update, and also we're going to present the Hall of Fame Award, the Rising Star Award, and the patient story of why we do what we do. So to begin this last session, we're going to start with a policy update from Michele Oshman, who is the Vice President for External Affairs of the National Biotechnology Innovation Organization, which SCbio is an affiliate of that. Michele is an experienced, dedicated leader with a long history of leading engagement for patient, professional, and trade associations in the biotechnology industry. She's well-versed in federal healthcare policy issues, including patient access, Medicare, Medicaid, 304B, value assessments, and intellectual property. She has experience in a lot of disease areas, including lupus and psoriasis, arthritis, neurodegeneration, pain, and osteoporosis. And throughout her career, she has been a strong and credible voice in both public policy and clinical development. So please join me in welcoming to the stage Michele Oshman.
I'm just enjoying the moment because I don't know when I'll be able to be on stage with live musicians again. I played the saxophone relatively well when I was young, but I don't think you'd like me to pull it out right now. Anyway, thanks so much for welcoming me today. Thank you so much to James, to Aaron, to Sam, and to this wonderful team here at SCbio. It's really an honor to be able to speak with you all today. I'm really going to talk to you very briefly about a couple of key policy issues that should matter to all of us, those of us in the biotechnology industry, and I'm speaking to those of you here, but I understand we also have a virtual audience, so I'm hoping that you all find this to be of value. Dr. McMurray-Heath this morning in her keynote alluded to some of the challenges that we're facing in Washington, D.C., and one of these really does get to the heart of what we all do, which is discover, develop, and market new treatments for patients. So every 5 years, what happens in Washington, D.C. is the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, is reauthorized through the User Fee Act. The User Fee Act ensures that medicines, devices, biologics that are reviewed by the FDA are reviewed without dipping into taxpayers' pocketbooks, but rather on a user fee basis from the manufacturing community. Paying a user fee doesn't mean you're more likely to get an FDA approval, doesn't mean you're less likely. It means you're paying a user fee, just like you would to cross a toll bridge. And every 5 years, this renegotiation and this dance with Congress begins. The technical negotiation, that is, what is the industry looking for, what is the FDA looking for, that's wrapped up now, and now we're really moving into sort of the political environment. So you'll start to hear about hearings on Capitol Hill in the House Energy and Commerce Committee, talking about the user fee agreement and what should happen next. This is considered must-pass legislation, meaning that it needs to be passed by September 30th in order for the FDA to continue operating and ensuring that we have safe, effective access to medications, diagnostics, treatments. And it's also something that is often rife with political turmoil. And so one of the challenges is inside Washington, we call this a Christmas tree, right? And that as the date gets closer, the Christmas, in this case, September 30th, ornaments start getting added to that tree. And you may have heard of different kinds of riders or, add-on amendments that may have nothing to do with FDA, that, you might have, a rider for XYZ, any number of things. And when you have a must-pass of legislation, that typically is what we see. Well, this time we're also facing an environment in which all of you who are innovators have heard much about, I'm sure, over the last few weeks, and that is that CMS, the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services, have made a decision to essentially to withhold the access to a newly developed, newly approved medication for the treatment of Alzheimer's disease. What this means in the CMS decision, although it was specific to a specific medication by one manufacturer, this CMS decision actually says, we're not sure we're going to reimburse for this drug. We know that it's the first ever disease-modifying agent for Alzheimer's disease. We're not sure. So what are we going to do instead? Well, we think that what we'll do is we will utilize a program called the Coverage with Evidence Development Program, CED, and I know we use lots of acronyms in Washington, but the bottom line is they've decided that while FDA has already determined this drug to be safe and effective, CMS has said, well, we're still going to put it through a post-marketing study, and the only way patients can get access to this medicine will be if they enroll in an NIH-sponsored clinical trial that is double-blinded and placebo-controlled. So can you imagine someone that you love being told, you have Alzheimer's disease. The good news is we now have a disease-modifying treatment. Sorry, but the only way you can get it is if you drive 600 miles to this academic center that's doing an NIH study, and you might get a placebo. It's not acceptable. And as Dr. McMurray-Heath said this morning, it's outrageous. So what can we do? There are a few things that we can do. One is recognize that our voices matter, all of us, everyone in this room, and all of your employees' voices matter. And you really need to engage in the process in order to really shape it. As Dr. McMurray-Heath said this morning, this CMS sweeping sort of decision not only impacts access to this particular medication, but to any future medicine that also targets A-beta amyloid deposition in the brain. So that's a problem because A-beta amyloid is the target, right? We've all been focused there. Everybody who's done Alzheimer's research, including myself at my former company, knows that is the target that we're all looking at. And so CMS has made a decision we're not going to cover these medicines if they're approved through the accelerated approval pathway. So what happened was, within a week of the CMS releasing this call letter, or this national coverage analysis, which was open for comment, one major manufacturer took their Alzheimer's treatment, which is in phase 3, off of the accelerated approval pathway. And they decided, well, we can't afford that risk. So that means patients will get it later than if it had been approved under accelerated, if they get it at all. So a couple of things that you can do. One is obviously engage with SCbio. The team here is amazing and wonderful. Dr. McMurray-Heath said this morning that the power of bio, national, international bio, really resides in our state associations, and that's very true. In addition to serving as the Vice President for External Affairs at Bio, I'm also the Executive Director for the Council of State Bioscience Associations. And SCbio is one of our most active members, and you all have a treasure in this state, and I hope that you all recognize and value that. So what can you do? Again, there are a number of things. One, if you take out your handy-dandy notebook and write down, go to bioaction.org, all one word, bioaction.org, and sign up to be one of our advocates. This is where you'll get policy updates and alerts and opportunities to really weigh in on policy issues that matter. This is something that all of our state associations have the opportunity to participate in, but also folks in the grassroots. We really do want to build our base of advocates, and we want to reach out to employees of not only biopharmaceutical companies, but the healthcare industry at large, and all of those who rely on this industry for their bread and butter. So again, bioaction.org. The other policy issue I want to talk to you about is one that is a consistent threat, but it's a little more close to home, and that is the Dole legislation, or the Dole Act, which was approved into law. Dole is the mechanism by which the tech transfer that is so robust and that we've all talked about today between the university system and the private sector ensures that the intellectual property travels with that molecule, travels with those innovators, and protects the IP doesn't necessarily get handed over to the federal government. The IP resides with the folks who innovated it. One of the challenges and threats that we're seeing right now is a degradation of the Dole Act, and something that you may have heard of called march-in rights. There are some in Congress who want to invoke march-in rights as a mechanism to control drug prices, and we all know that the government controlling pricing it's a bit of a challenge because, of course, we already know that the robust negotiation that does happen for medications to be available through formularies, those negotiations happen between manufacturers and distributors, PBMs, payers, but also between large group health plans and brokers as well. So the Dole Act is really threatening, the Dole Act is being threatened by the use of march-in rights, which would authorize the federal government to essentially march in, retain that IP, the intellectual property, and allow anybody of their choosing to manufacture this drug that you all worked so hard to discover, develop, and get through clinical trials. So I'll give you another web address to go to, and I know that this is a long one, but it's buydolecoalition.org. Buy is spelled B-A-Y-H. Dole as in the good late Senator Bob Dole, coalition.org. So two things, again, bioaction.org, buydolecoalition.org, and of course, stay close to SCbio, everything that they're doing here. And at the federal level, I really, really encourage you, as boring as it can sound, and I know that most of you, if you turned on, like C-SPAN, you'd probably be asleep before you even put down the remote control. But I promise you, Washington's an exciting place. I promise you that you have strong advocates supporting the industry. I like to call myself one of them. Bio is very much fighting in your corner, as are your state associations. So with that, I'll wrap it up, unless there are any major questions that folks want to ask. Thank you.